Kerry, my fellow coach. How are you doing this Monday?
I am so well, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty good.
Yeah?
It was a whirlwind weekend, but you know what's my problem today is I have so much to do, but I'm like finding distractions to just do whatever I shouldn't be doing. Like before I got on with you, I started rearranging the furniture in my office and I'm like, no. That's not something you want to start right now. But I'm like having trouble getting started this week.
So I am actually having the opposite problem of you. I've already recorded 4. Obviously, I've been looking forward to yours the most, but I've recorded 4 podcasts today, and I feel like I don't have enough time to get my other stuff done, which normally includes things like doing the laundry, rearranging my furniture, washing my hair, relacing my shoes. I will find pretty much anything I could do to not do work.
I know. Isn't that funny how that goes sometimes? Yeah. And I'm so disciplined usually. Like I'm the type of person, like I'm reliable. One client once told me, Michael's reliable as a clock. Like I am. I'm reliable. Yeah. I always get my stuff done. But just sometimes I don't know what it is. I guess I don't have any like super duper deadlines. So I'm kind of flitting around.
When you don't have
the
fire under your butt that you're like, yeah I hear you.
Totally.
100%.
Well, Thank you so much for being willing to come on the show. I know it'll be a great conversation because we always have good conversations. But you know what I was thinking this morning, Kerry? I've never met you in person. We only know each other virtually.
And we've known each other virtually for quite some time now. How did we get it in?
I think it's like 5
years.
Looking for?
And acquainted. I almost said, how did we get so antiquated?
Antiquated.
Did you call it Freudian?
No. We're progressive. We're modern folks. We're not antiquated. Definitely not. I think it was definitely like one of those online networking things. We met through. I don't remember which group it was, but no, it was a long time ago. It was probably, let's see. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago that we've been talking. I was just going to say 5.
That long. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And you live in Jersey. You're right across the river from me. So we have to make it a point to get together at some point soon.
I'm in.
All right, cool.
Okay.
All right. Terrific. Well, listen, true to the name of this show, we haven't prepped. There's no agenda. We have no idea where this conversation is going to go, but how about we give it a shot?
Let's go. I'm in.
All right. Here we go. I don't know where this conversation's going to go. So everybody, I'm here today with my colleague and friend, Kerry Barrett. We met quite some time ago through networking, and we've stayed in touch ever since. And she and I always have really great conversations. Now, number one, we're both coaches, but we kind of coach on different things. Yeah. But Kerry's got a really interesting background as well. And I just thought recording one of our conversations, Kerry, would be fun. So say hi to everybody who's listening today.
Hey, everybody who's listening today. And thank you for having me. I am looking forward to this. Like I said, I've done several podcasts today, and I've been looking forward to this one the most.
So you're all warmed up. This is my first one of the day, but I did have 2 coaching sessions this morning, so I'm ready to talk.
You're ready to go.
All right. Yeah, right. So Kerry, tell me a little bit about like what's got you feeling passionate these days, or what's lighting you up, or what's something you're really loving talking about or doing or sharing with people these days?
Oh my gosh. Well, you're talking professionally, not personally, right?
It can be either. This is kind of this podcast sometimes goes to business, but we talk about everything on this show.
Well, on the personal side, I'm getting ready to go to Hawaii for the first time. I've never been there. And we're taking our kids, there's 3 of them, for spring break. And I can say this openly because they're not here. Right now, it's a surprise for them. Okay. So I'm like in the throes of, buying water shoes and rash guards and all that other good stuff. So I'm really excited about this. It's been a while since I've had a vacation. All right. I'm going to put the personal stuff aside and think about what is really lighting a fire for me professionally. I have revamped my entire coaching program. So I've done a couple of pivots. When I launched the business, it was right before COVID. And of course, everybody had to make some changes then. And I did. And I moved from public speaking training into on-camera coaching, which is what I do now. Like in the executive world, it's often called media training, but I work with a lot of attorneys, and I learned some things trying to take them through my old program that didn't totally work. So like my old program was too long for them, and it was too like technical and that sort of stuff. Anyway, I won't go into the weeds, but I'm super excited to this new system, if you will, into the world. And I'm like refining and I'm just, yeah, I'll say it again. I'm really excited.
That's right. Great. And listen, that's
Yeah.
part of what I always talk to people about as well, is just what you just said about, you
Yeah.
tried some things and they
Yeah.
weren't right for whatever reason, too long or too much this. I've done that too so many times.
Yeah.
And it hurts when that happens
Oh my
sometimes
God.
because you've like poured all this time and energy into something you think that's going to work.
Yeah.
But it's so important to like, I just actually, in the last episode of this podcast that I recorded, I talked to Erin Davis about this. It's like sometimes something's just not working.
Yeah.
And the sooner you can admit that to yourself, and I say pivot or adjust or whatever, and she used the term recalibrate.
That's
which
such
I
a
loved.
good, that's such a, yeah, that sounds better.
Yeah. Yeah. And as
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, I mean, is this your first time on your own as an entrepreneur, or had you done it before in your career?
Okay. No, this is my first time. And when I tell you, okay, so here's the background of how I started this business. So I left the news business. And I'm going to backtrack for a second here. Yes, you're right. It feels like a failure every time you have to start over again because you wonder what you did wrong. And it's like that sunk cost fallacy where you keep going down the same path, even though you know it's leading you in the wrong direction. I've done that like 24 times. So, and part of it is because I'm learning this as I go along. So when I left the news industry, it was, like I said, I started this business right before COVID. So it was at the end-ish of 2019. And I remember, oftentimes a news person, specifically somebody who was in TV, will often go towards either production, video production and documentaries and that sort of stuff, or they'll go toward PR. And, I know what each of those industries does, but I didn't really know the day to day. So I was networking with people I knew who were in both industries, like, tell me what your day is like. What do you like? What do you don't like? Et cetera, et cetera. And I was talking to a woman who did PR and communications for a big law firm it's all over the world, but we were in New York City. It's headquartered in New York City. And she's like, oh my gosh, you should not go back into corporate. You should start your own thing because you have this skill and like attorneys will pay you tons of money for it. And I was like, okay. So I went home that day and told my husband I was going to start a business. And when I tell you that's how much thought went into it, I'm not, that is how much thought went into it.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how much I didn't know. Like when you're especially a broadcast journalist, you have a broad range of knowledge, because you're covering all sorts of different things and you have to be able to synthesize them and spit them out in a tight, coherent way. But I realized, I'm glad I didn't realize it right away because I would have stopped, but I realized fairly quickly that one thing I had never reported on was business. I had never, aside from, the opening bell or the closing bell on the stocks, I had never reported on business. I have no business background. I'd never read a business book. I never listened to a business podcast. And I remember going to one of the first networking events that I went to as a business owner. And I was still doing public speaking training then. And somebody asked me how I was going to scale. I was like, I don't even understand the question. What are you asking
What do you
me?
mean scale?
Yeah. Are you going to develop a funnel? I'm like, again, no idea what you're talking about. And that's a sales funnel, right? Where for anybody who's listening who might not be familiar, right? You bring people in at awareness and you funnel down to, to bringing people into your business, your service, whatever it is. So that's how little I knew. And it was a very painful and steep learning curve. And obviously, I revamped my latest program. I'm still learning.
Right.
And the other thing, not to belabor this issue, I'll shut up in a second, but the
No,
other
it's
thing
great.
I realized is I thought I had a pretty good handle on who I was. The news industry can bring out the best, certainly, but also the worst in people. You've got mean viewers, you've got a super competitive, cutthroat industry. There's always someone who's coming up behind you. And I thought I had a fairly good sense of who I was and a fairly solid sense of confidence, right? I had overcome an extreme fear of public speaking.
Yeah.
And, now I was talking live on TV for hours to, maybe millions of people. So I thought I had a fairly good, what I realized is that a business owning one and running one requires all sorts of shadow work that I didn't know I needed. My confidence was absolute nil for a very long time. And that was surprising, but it's constant growth, both professionally and personally.
Well, that's one of the things that I talk to people, because people come to, because I've changed careers 4 times. This is my second rodeo at running my own business.
Yeah.
People do come to me a lot and say, like, I'm thinking about leaving a big company and doing my own thing and da-da-da-da-da. And I love talking to people about that because I love sharing. I mean, I've made all the mistakes, all of them, every single one, just like some of the things that you're describing. And I love helping people avoid those mistakes or sharing my knowledge on those types of things. But one of the things I do tell people is this is not for everybody. Running your own show, being responsible for it all, everything from doing the work to getting the business, the funnel, handling your finances the right way. I mean, there is so much, and the discipline that it takes. I mean, you and I talked a little bit about discipline, before we started recording here, about how, you have to be able to force yourself to do the things that need to be done, because if you don't do them, they don't get done, and a business can't be run.
No.
So it's a wake-up call to a lot of people.
Oh, 100%. And it's interesting. So I worked, to piggyback on what you're saying, when I did some evening news, but when I was up here in New York City, I was doing all mornings. And I love morning TV. It's very habitual for the viewers. There's a lot of camaraderie. But I had to maintain, in order to be able to get up at 12:30 a.m., I had to maintain a very, very concrete schedule. Like there was not a lot of room for deviation. Now I have 3 kids, so I have to make some, but like I get up at this time, I do this work. The show is from 4 to 7. And then there's these cut-ins, and then there's this, and then I'm done. And then there's a lot of guardrails around you when you're in corporate. You know what your task is, you know who your team is, you know how long it's going to take, right? That sort of stuff. When you're running a business, you set the guardrails. They're not set for you. And if you don't know how to build guardrails, you're screwed. And I didn't know how to build guardrails either. So I spent all this time doing tactical things because they felt like guardrails, but they didn't move the needle. I wasn't doing anything with any sort of strategy. It was just all stuck together with like chewing gum and duct tape,
Absolutely, I know. But you've made it.
Yeah,
so
fingers crossed. Don't jinx me.
Yeah. Well, I always say to myself, because in the beginning when you start something, you never know. And that's one of the questions. I wrote down a couple notes because a couple of things you said I kind of want to unpack and hear your perspective on, because I think it'll help people hearing about your journey. The number one is, how did you have the courage at that dinner table, I think you said, when you said, I'm going to start my own business? Now you know all the things you didn't know, but back then, what gave you the courage to make that leap?
I mean, I think taking risk has always been a part of my DNA. I knew, for example, when I started in the news industry, 26 odd years ago now, like I was really not good and I was scared of it, but I knew I wanted to do it. And I knew with, all the studying, and I went and got my master's degree, spent a lot of money, like and it's a crazy competitive industry. I mean, insanely competitive. There's 2 or 3 jobs in every, there's 212 markets. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but like, let's say every market has a job available and there's 2 of them, right? What's the chance that one is going to be what you can do? So maybe at any given time, you're looking at 200 jobs across the country that are available, 212. Wow. There's not a lot. So I spent all this time studying with the full realization that nothing might come of this. It might be a complete goose egg and I might have to go in a different direction. But that didn't scare me. So that's always been, I was scared about the job, doing it and doing it well, but I wasn't scared about the process of finding a job. And I did find a job before I graduated. So I would say, without sort of sounding arrogant about it, most of the risks that I have taken in my life have turned out really well. And I went into this with the same mindset, the same, this is going to work. Why wouldn't it work? And I didn't even question it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
I love that. Yeah. Well, it's similar. Like, people think I'm a risk taker, and I guess I am, but I'm a calculated risk taker. Like when I started my the two businesses I've started, each time I was like kind of testing on the side and seeing if and like getting enough confidence that like, yeah, I could at least make some money doing this. And people did want me to help with certain, like with Convia Group, it was people were asking me to help them with presentations anyway, because they know I've taught public speaking for over 30 years. And then people were coming to me saying, I want to make a career change, but my personal brand isn't where it needs to be for me to speak to the people I should. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I can help you with that. So like when that gave me the confidence, but there was still that moment where I had to take the leap. And that was always scary. Yeah. That was very scary. I remember the first business, which was a branding agency. We had just bought a house. I think I had, I don't know, $1,500 in the bank. I mean, it was like not the right time.
Right.
But I remember it was one of those dinner table conversations with my partner. And I was like, I really think I can do this. And we were like, all right, well, let's do it. Yeah. And it was scary, but I guess I had the perseverance to make it work. I don't know. It's hard to remember. It was a long time ago, but what were you going to say?
I was also going to say, we both had, I have my husband. I know I'm not going to end up, homeless, for lack of a better word. Like, I have somebody who can support me. My hat is off to the people who do this, who are functioning on their own, right? They don't have that sort of safety net. They might have savings, which is awesome, but they don't have somebody who can keep the ball rolling for them on that side. I have to be honest, that would have scared the crap out of me. That would have been really scary.
Yeah. Yeah. That's and people, it's true risk, and there's a fire in that person's pit that they're willing to take that risk and to do that. Yeah. And hopefully they believe in themselves, and that's wonderful. And, I say to you, same with you, hats off to those people, because that is a scary risk to do. Speaking of, so I want to switch to one thing I heard you say about you, that you and I have never, I've seen you talk about this, I think maybe on LinkedIn, but you and I have never really talked about it together, is your original fear of public speaking. Because when I see you on paper, my friend, former broadcaster, anchor, Emmy Award-winning reporter and journalist, and then I hear that you were kind of paralyzed at the thought of doing your job. How did you tell us about where you were then and how you got yourself through that? Because I think, so many people have a fear of public speaking, and you and I are both employed in different ways to help people with those types of things. But how did you, because I know how I did it, but I'm curious how you did it.
Wait, were you afraid of it too?
Oh my God. When I was trying to I wanted to be an actor. And one of the reasons I started taking public speaking and theater in school was because when I was on stage doing the act, I was fine for all the rehearsals. Yeah. And then you put eyeballs in that audience and butts in those seats. I could, my hands would shake. I could barely speak the words and I was like, well, if you love acting this much, you got to get over this. Yeah. And public speaking courses is what helped me.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a great point. And I think, to go back to the question that you asked me, I didn't take, yes, I had internships and I practiced, had 3 internships but those are 3 months, it's not a lot of practice, and you're not really on air. You're not live on TV when you're an internship. You're learning the role in the newsroom and how you put a story together and that sort of stuff. So I'd not been live on air. So my fear goes way, way, way back. I can remember as early as 6th grade having to do a report in science with, I think there were 4 other people there. And I remember, I was faking losing my voice. I was anything I could to delay this thing, even though I was up there with a group of people that I could sort of hide behind. And to be honest with you, I really don't quite know. Listen, I'm going to be straight. I had really bad self-esteem. I felt terrible about myself all the time. And so I'm sure that played into it, but I didn't have that, moment. Like, some people have a moment where a presentation they bomb, and all it takes is that one time, and they've created a story for themselves about how they're going to bomb every time, right? I didn't have a moment like that. But what I actually started out in college as a pre-veterinary medicine major because I thought that I wouldn't have to talk to people quite so much. And I was about 2 years in, and organic chemistry hit, and I'm like, I get along with organic chemistry worse than I get along with public speaking. So I'm out. And I just, I took a year and a half off because I had always wanted to be a vet ever since I was like as young as I could remember. I had zero idea. There was nothing else in my mind about what I wanted to do. And so I took a year and a half off, and like everybody was graduating around me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to find something. Otherwise I'm never going to graduate. And my school had just started a communications department, and it was very, very broad. It was speech pathology, and there was some business communications, and there was, language and international like that sort of stuff. And there was also a journalism track, if you will. And there was, print and TV, and there was a little like PR and marketing that went along with that. And I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm going to jump into communications. I wasn't in journalism at that point, just communications in general, no organic chemistry, number one. And number two, I also knew that I had this fear around public speaking that was going to hinder me at some point in my professional career. And I was hoping that this would help me get my arms around it, because I had 2 public speaking classes. And intuitively, I think I understood that public speaking was more subjective, right, than objective, the way organic chemistry. So there's not one style that works. There's not one way of delivering that works. And I wouldn't have articulated it that way back then, but I do now. So one of the ways to make up credits, because I was now a year and a half behind, was to get an internship. But I was like 27 credits a semester in, and I had to figure out how I could jam in another 3 with this crazy academic schedule. So I thought, well, news is a 24/7 industry. I could intern on the weekends. I could intern early in the mornings. I could intern late at night. So I got an internship at a local TV station, WYFF, NBC affiliate in Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina. And from day one, I absolutely loved it. So then I had to figure out how I was going to get over this speaking issue that I had, and not just get over the fear, but get good enough at it that somebody would pay me to do it. And that came only by doing it. That element came from the daily practice of speaking, for me, on a camera. And it took a while. Took probably about 6 months, because I was learning it on my own, but that hit, and suddenly it all started to come together. So that was a very long answer to your question, but that's the full story of how I got where I am.
No, I'm really glad that you shared that, because that is a lot of, anytime that you want to become better or more proficient. I mean, we live in such a world where you see people on LinkedIn and whatever social network saying, I can teach you to do this in 2 weeks, or or it takes time. It takes time. And everybody's starting point is different. We're not all equal. Yeah. So it really depends on, you, like, I could hear from you. I mean, you went back to 6th grade. Yeah. A memory of a time when you felt uncomfortable. I mean, those things stick with us. Yes. For a long time. And you're absolutely right with what you said. Some people who have a disastrous speaking moment, or something that can be a serious setback. But I also loved what I heard from you is, like, you found that internship and you got that spark. Yeah. And then it sounds like you were almost relentless to figure out how to find your space in that industry.
I was relentless. I would watch all the news programs. If I couldn't watch them, I would record them. And I would look at the way people delivered and the way they connected with the story. And I would study the rundowns of our show. And a rundown is basically the agenda. Like, this story comes first. It's a minute and 30 seconds. This story comes next, and it's all the writing. And I would study those as well. It's a really good word to use. I was absolutely and completely relentless about learning.
Right. Yeah. Well, and sometimes that's what it takes. Learning. I remember when I started before I started my branding agency, I had gotten a job in a medical communications company, and it was kind of I don't think I was as laser focused as you were in your story, but I knew I wanted to start my own business, and I knew I needed true agency experience before I could do it. But I didn't have the experience to get someone to hire me in an agency. It was a catch-22.
Yeah. So what did you do?
I was relentless with, this is a long time ago, so I'm going to show my age here, but I had to learn certain design programs to be able to be accepted into a creative department because I knew how to write. I was already a marketer and I could sort of design, but I wanted to get to that creative director position so that when I started an agency,
Yeah.
I have the clout of being a creative director, and I wanted it to be art and I wanted it to be the full thing. So I rented videos from the library in Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, and every night for months watched videos and created campaigns. And Kerry, they were they were horrid in the beginning, but and there was no, I guess internet was this is 2000.
Internet was kind of a thing. But it wasn't mainstream yet, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I could go see what good I remember going to the library and picking out, I have two of them at home, these big book of design ideas. And I would just look at them and I'd be like, so I wasn't trained as an artist, but I guess I was relentless in trying to figure out how to learn the software, get my design eye to the point where it was at least good enough.
Yep.
That I could be seen as someone who could manage other creative people. But I had to pay my dues as a designer for a couple years. And I also had to go through that uncomfortable of being horrible at first.
That is the worst feeling, especially when you're used to being the expert in the room. Like, you had a very solid base on your knowledge and expertise before you jumped into, with what you needed before you jumped into this. And it's really challenging, I find, to go from a space where you knew everything you needed to know about doing the job that was in front of you. And then you go into this new space and suddenly you're like the least knowledgeable person in the room. It's a very uncomfortable place to be.
It is, but I guess sometimes a little discomfort is.
Yeah.
I tend to put myself in, well, I guess I'm older now, but in the past, it was like I kind of needed to put myself in those discomfort positions in order to grow, in order to get anywhere.
And I think that's key for anybody. Like, and even now with our antiquated stuff, like, it still requires putting yourself into an uncomfortable state in order to grow. Like, for example, right now, I'm growing my YouTube. I just started posting on YouTube, which I know I was really dumb. I should have done this a long time ago because I teach people about video and how to show up on camera. But I'm still kind of uncomfortable in that space. I'm not an influencer. I'm not a streamer type personality. I'm still figuring out, like, what do you, in a 15-minute video for long form YouTube, how are you? So it's a constant, you put the bar, here at waist level, and then when you get comfortable there, you move it up, and then you're at chest level, and you try and match that, and it's just a constant moving of the goalposts almost.
Yeah. Well, and I call it my, like Erin referred to it, it's recalibrating, but I used to be so rigid. It's like I would set this goal and then I would do all the things you're supposed to do to get to that goal, and I would be relentless and not flexible. It's like, this is what I've been told I need to do, and this is the steps, and I'm going to do and now, with experience comes wisdom. Okay, what do I need to adjust here? What level do I need to push it? Because like when you were talking about what you went through in the early days of this business with you about, I put this program together. It was too long. It was all the memories were coming back for me of the things that I put together in the first 4 years of this business. And I mean, and the mistakes that I made with it. But I learned something from all of those, and I'm so much wiser now with how I develop and test things. Which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you find it took a little space or a little time between the error and that realization to gain that perspective? Like, I don't know if I'm quite there yet.
It took space. And you know what it took? See, this is one of the reasons I have this podcast is like, I work pretty much alone. I mean, I have other facilitators that go with me for certain things, but I'm generally alone. Yeah. But I thrive on conversations and connection with people. And when I had those failures with those different programs and everything, instead of me sitting here feeling like I failed, it didn't work, and I was putting blame on me. I mean, I used to run a branding agency. I know how to market stuff. Okay. Yeah. But I was kicking myself. You didn't market it right. You didn't analyze the audience well enough. Yeah. And when I got in my head with all that, I'm like, wait, okay, let's talk about it with other people who would understand. So I have colleagues who've tried to do some successful, some unsuccessful, and just hearing from them that they went through what I did and getting their perspective. And the last one I tried, it was my ad guy who was helping me run ads. Okay. My ad guy, James, and he ran this great program that should have worked. Okay. Should have worked, like on paper, it was targeting the right people. It was even location focused. And we wrote the ad creative together. We did everything. And then when we debriefed on it, we learned people don't buy the programs I'm selling until they know me.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get them to buy a program.
Yeah. Yep.
Not me.
Right. They need to know you.
It was painful to get there because I had this wonderful program that nobody bought.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of money on advertising, and I think I got some registrants, but not enough to make it profitable.
Right.
But that program today, now that I sell it, I'm not a salesy guy, but now that I talk to people about how I deliver it and what it does it works now.
Yeah. Yep.
But it didn't work the way I was trying to promote it then. So hard lessons learned, but I learned. But I wouldn't have gotten there without that conversation with James. I don't think.
Yeah. No, there are, like, I have what I call my business besties, which sound like James, right? Somebody that you're there bouncing ideas off of, and you're sharing and collaborating, because you're right. I work basically alone as well. I work from home. I'm not, it can be lonely being an entrepreneur, especially now when we're sort of all sequestered in our homes as a holdover from COVID, and it's convenient and all that other good stuff. And I sure am glad that I don't have a commute anymore, but it can be lonely, and finding those people who you can, like, is this idea dumb? Should I spend money on this? Tell me what you think about it. Like those things, running even that granular stuff by people who have been there before is hugely helpful.
It's huge. And like when you were younger and you would give people your resume for their opinion, you're going to get 900 different opinions, and that's okay. But for me, it's less about the opinions I get and the opportunity for me to talk it out. That's what helps me.
Yeah. You refine.
Instead of it all being up here.
And you refine every time whether I'm actually speaking it or I'm writing it down and explaining it, I find an area that could use a little bit of refinement. I understand my audience a little bit more. In fact, to be honest with you, this was really short-sighted of me. It was only through going through one of those processes recently that I realized I'm losing a huge opportunity by not being on YouTube more consistently. Had I not been talking it out and realized, people are not going on LinkedIn and searching media training. They're going to YouTube and they're trying to piece it together on their own. So that's where I need to be. But again, I've said this a million times, but I'll say it again.
It's worth repeating.
Having those people, yes, it is huge. Don't jump into this. Think about jumping into business ownership unless you know some people around you, or you can very quickly find them.
Yeah, because that network is, that's kind of what you and I have done a little bit for each other over the years. I mean, we connected because, we both have similar interests and we like staying in touch. But I can even remember conversations between you and me about how much should I price this, or do you think people would buy this, and all of that kind of stuff. And it's invaluable to have that space to be able to talk that stuff out, for sure.
And thank you for all of that, by the way.
You're welcome. Thank you too. No. And I always tell people, like, the coaches and advisors that I have in my network, like, they're my lifeline, because like you said, it can be a little lonely, but also there's no reason to suffer in your own bubble here, because people genuinely, there's some competition out there. I'm not a competitive guy in business. I always tell people, play Scrabble with me or gin rummy, different story. I'm coming for you. But in business, it's like, you know what? There's enough people out there, and I don't really want people engaging me if they're not interested in me and my programs. Totally. It's like, if I'm not the right one, go for it. And when I have people like you and other people around me who have that same mindset. So, and that, because we have that mindset, we can legitimately share and help each other without worry. And that makes all the difference for me personally.
It does, 100%. I am completely aligned with that line of thought. Outside of the news business, I'm not really that competitive either. And I'm not a salesperson, and I will never get pushy with somebody because it feels gross to me. But having somebody that you can trust, who, even if like, we are in similar, we're adjacent to one another in terms of what we teach people, but there's a real collaboration there.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're going to collaborate more in the future, Kerry. We definitely are. I can't wait. I know we're going to do that. So listen, one more question for you as we kind of wrap up our time together here, which has been really great. Thank you so much for this conversation. I appreciate it. What's one thing that you would tell the early career Kerry that you wish she knew based on where you are today?
Early, like, news career or early business career? Okay.
What do you think? Whatever one comes to mind. And I'll think of one too.
Oh my gosh. There's so many things that I think I would tell myself, but I have always been too worried about other people's opinions. And it has, outside of some of the risk that I've taken, it's informed too much of my life. It's informed too much of the things I was willing to do in my business as well. And I would say to my younger self, at the end of the day, really the only thing that matters is your opinion of yourself, and when it comes to business, your client's opinion of you. And those are the two sort of grounding points that I use when I think about how I'm going to move forward now. So that applies to life, not just business.
Certainly. Yeah. I think mine's similar, because when I asked you that question, what I started to think about was how many people told me that I was being silly or that I couldn't with my career changes.
Yeah.
Try to be an actor, then a high school teacher, then a marketing manager, then a creative director, then...
You have done a lot of things.
Yeah. And then I started my own business, and then when my time came, the end of my time came at my agency after I sold it, starting a whole nother line of business. And there were so many people along that way who didn't mean to shoot me down or to, but they did. They were like, what are you doing? And that's so silly. You're leaving security. You're da-da-da-da-da. People are going to, the marketplace is going to be confused because you were this and now you're saying you're that. And it's like, I powered through it, but I wish I could tell my younger self, like, release that. Don't let that sit on you, because it sat on me.
Yeah.
I remember what people thought, like you said.
Yeah. I remember in college when I was considering making that change to communications, somebody told me, you'll never succeed in that field. You are like the quietest person I know. You don't talk. How are you going to manage in a communications degree? So very similar to you, people saying it couldn't be done, Right. But I guess you and I are both proof positive that it can.
We are, and I'm glad you didn't listen to that person. Likewise, when those words were said to you. Absolutely. Likewise. Yeah. Kerry, so wonderful to talk to you. I want to give you a minute to just tell those folks who are listening who might want to talk more to you, reach out to you, learn more about you, how they can do that.
Well, you are so kind. Thank you, first of all, for having me and for giving me this opportunity. The second thing, in terms of where people can find me, as of this recording, my website is going through a bit of a revamp. So I would head on over to, YouTube, number one, now that that's my new platform. But if you're looking to book a call or anything like that, feel free to go to my LinkedIn. I've got really easy access to links to, if you want to chat, you want to get some clarity on your media training or how you show up in your online brand, I'd be happy to.
Thank you so much for that. I wrote down to make sure that I put, because if I don't write down, this brain doesn't remember anything anymore, but to put those links in the show notes. So everybody, those links will be in the show notes as well. I know, Kerry, this was your 5th podcast recording of the day, so I hope you're not too exhausted from talking, but I really think our conversation today, especially for people who are either thinking about doing something on their own or struggling with some self-doubt in their journey or whatever, that hopefully our words can help them a little bit today. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. Thanks for listening today. If you like the show, please rate it on your favorite podcast platform. To learn more about your host, that's me, Michael Piperno, please visit my website at michaelpiperno.com. That website's in the show notes. See you next time.